What's the story, Morning Glory? What's the word, Hummingbird? Thank you so much for clicking on my channel and for joining me for another review of the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City Reunion Part 3. So during the commercial break that they had, we see Lisa going to Meredith and sitting next to Meredith. And this is when she was trying to tell Meredith that, she was apologizing, she was sorry, but kind of like making an excuse of why she acted the way she did on the show, saying that, well, I heard that you said my house was really crappy. And of course, Meredith looks at her like she's absolutely nuts. And she was like, I never said anything about your house, but even if I would have said something about your house, that is no excuse for the way that you treated me on the show and for the things that you said. So Meredith is in her dressing room and she's FaceTiming Seth. And I guess she's telling Seth how Lisa came to apologize to her. And maybe she was asking Seth for advice on what she should do. And I loved the quote or the advice that Seth gave her. He says, sometimes second chances is giving someone a bullet if they miss the first time. That is something that I want to put on my wall. I love that. I mean, that quote to me was everything. So the husbands now show up. They do the introduction of, who's who, and they do some small talk to break the ice. And then they question about how much of the savings did Whitney actually spend. And they didn't give an actual dollar amount, Whitney and her husband. They didn't actually say an actual dollar amount, but supposedly business is doing great. Whatever she's selling, whatever product she's selling, it's doing really great. And she's able to put money back into the savings account. Then they said that it wasn't actually a savings account. It was just an account set up for money that they're putting aside for a log cabin. Look, I don't pay like the most attention to every single little thing that's said on the show, but I don't remember hearing them say anything about putting money away for a log cabin. The whole entire time when they were talking about her rebranding her business and using this money in the savings account, they portrayed it as money that she was spending from the family's savings account. It made it seem like this was money that they had put away for their future or for their children's future, and she was taking money out of that for her business. I don't remember hearing anything about this was our log cabin account. So I don't know where that came from. So Heather says that she sells Whitney's products in Beauty Bar and that they fly off the shelf. That she doesn't even have them for long before she's completely sold out. So that's good that she's able to recoup the money that she put into the business. So then they question Seth's obsession about Whitney's cleavage. And this is like a little funny moment, to kind of break the tension. And through all the giggles and whatever about Whitney's cleavage, I always wonder, like, how does Meredith feel about that? Even though Seth is being very jokey, the fact remains that, Whitney has that type of body that a lot of people would consider, curvaceous, desirable, etc. So I always wondered how Meredith felt about that. So then the question about Lisa's rant to Seth, which is Seth being Meredith's husband. So they questioned him, how did he feel about the things that Lisa said, especially, after what Meredith had gone through. And Seth said that he found it really difficult to watch, considering that, her father had just died at that time when Lisa went on this crazy rant. And then he said that he tried to distract people from the situation at hand by just really making a fool of himself because he knew that the tension was really thick between Meredith and Lisa. And then they questioned Seth, what did he think about Lisa saying that Meredith has slept with half of New York? And Seth said, well, did she mention that I slept with the other half? And I thought that was really funny that he was able to make light of it, that they were able to laugh about it. And it was just really funny because I know that if Lisa has two working brain cells, that she feels extremely bad about what she said. So even though they're not holding her to the cross and they're just, kind of making light of the whole situation, I'm pretty sure that Lisa understands that what she did was just, she really crossed the line. We can laugh about it now, but girl, you were dead wrong for that. So then Seth says he just wants everybody to heal. He wants to put this whole thing behind them and just, move forward. So then they question John, and I think John would be Lisa's husband. They question John about Lisa, doing that whole crazy rant about Meredith. And John said that that's not how Lisa normally is. And I'm just like, then if that's not how she normally is, then she's not exist. She doesn't exist, because this is the only Lisa that I know. I don't know any other Lisa that's any other way other than crazy, self-centered, likes to stir the pot with people. She likes to throw people under the bus. She likes to throw the rock and hide her hand. She's a very fair weather friend. She doesn't understand what loyalty is unless it's loyalty to her. So I don't know any other Lisa than this crazy, diabolical Lisa. But he said that's not how she normally is. I guess, her sane side is saved only for her family and not the cameras. So then Lisa mouths to Meredith, "I'm so sorry." And then Meredith says, "I know." So Meredith to me seems pretty exhausted about this whole situation. And then she probably also just wants to put it to rest, because it's exhausting talking about the same thing over and over for months, because they got to go through the situation when it happens. Then they got to relive it when they watch the episodes back. Then they got to talk about it on the reunion. Then they got to hear about everything from social media when the episodes are finally aired. So she's probably at that point, when I say she, I mean Meredith, where she's just like, let's just get on with our lives. So then they question Dewey, Jenny's husband. They question Dewey about, the child that they had lost, and will having more children replace the child that you lost? And he said that basically he does want more children because he's got two really awesome kids and he just wants more of that. And they question Dewey, why put your wife through another pregnancy after all she's been through? The stillborn, the miscarriages. Why put her through another pregnancy? And he says, he doesn't expect Jenny to go through another pregnancy because there's other options. There's other ways of having more children. So then they question him about Dewey having a sister wife or wanting a sister wife. And he said that he was so focused on the end result, which is, expanding the family, that he really wasn't focused on the process to get there. So he wasn't like, one of those, I guess he wasn't trying to say like, my wife is not enough for me and I need more wives. He was just like, I just want more children. And if that means, adding another addition to our marriage or having a sister wife or two, fine. If he gets me more children, that's the route that I'm going to take. But he really wasn't so focused on the whole sister wife thing. It was just, I need more children thing. So he admits that he really didn't consider his wife's feelings. I don't see how you couldn't. Like, some of the things that are said on these shows, it's like, people are really like this. Like, how could you not consider how your own wife would feel when you're talking about having a sister wife? So then Jenny suggested Dewey getting help, and which he did. And Sharif also admitted that therapy is a really good thing. And then Sharif also had shed some light on the fact that it's important for a lot of African American men to, seek out professional help and not to see it as a sign of weakness or like you're crazy or anything like that. That it's a very positive, healing, healthy thing to do is to seek out professional help. And then Dewey also adds, Asian men as well, there's a stigma around getting therapy or going to counseling in the Asian community, and that also needs to be broken. So those were some really awesome points that were made for that particular segment. So Sharif talks about the moment, because I think Andy asked about, walk us through the moment when you found out that Jen got arrested. So he walked through that, how he was at that part, I didn't really get the details of it, but from what I gathered, he was at a legit doctor's appointment because he was having some legit medical issues, such as rectal bleeding. And it was during that time that when he was dealing with that, he had found out that Jen was arrested. I think he said he got a call from like a federal agent. I think that's how he found out about Jen being arrested. So then they questioned him about, then the question went to infidelity in Jen's and Sharif's marriage. And they both denied it. They both denied that they've ever been unfaithful to the other. So did Sharif wonder where the money came from? And he said that Jen had worked for 20 plus years. So the things that she had was an accumulation of things that she's purchased throughout the years. It wasn't like all of a sudden she just came home with a whole bunch of name brand stuff and was just throwing money all over the place, like in this one brief moment in time. This was stuff that she had accumulated over the years. And so there was no reason for him to question it because she's been, according to Sharif, she's been a very hard worker, through most of her life. So this is just stuff that she's accumulated. And he denies that he was, somehow benefiting from Jen's lifestyle. He says that he has his own income, so he never really. Oh yeah, I think they asked him, "Are you worried that you're going to be implicated in her illegal shenanigans?" And he was like, "No, I'm not worried about that because I have my own income and I don't live off of her." Because I think Andy was trying to compare, or he claims that people were asking, was he going to grill Sharif the way that they grilled Erica Jane on her reunion of the Real Housewives of Beverly Hills? Because it's very, very similar. And he was like, I'm not benefiting from her lifestyle. I have my own income. And he never worried about being implicated in whatever she was doing the way Erica Jane was implicated in her husband's illegal activities. So then, did Sharif ever doubt Jen's business practice? And he says he never had any doubt about her business practice. Asking him these questions is sort of unnecessary because, I mean, that's his wife. So number one, he's going to defend his wife to the very end. Whether he believes she did any wrongdoing or not, they're going to have a united front. And just like with Erica Jane to some point with her husband, Sharif and Jen are going to have a very united front, and he is going to stand by his wife, and he's not going to make her look bad in any kind of way because obviously he doesn't want Jen to go to jail. So he's going to paint her in the best light possible. So, did he have an understanding of what Jen did for a living? And he was like, well, I know that she was really into beauty and fashion, but what she did prior to that cannot be discussed. So, I was like, okay, trying to get my timeline together. And I don't know if I got it right or not, but it seems like she recently was in beauty and fashion, but the things that she's being charged with were things that she was doing before what she recently was doing as a living now, I guess. So this is stuff from before. Then she quit that and then she got into beauty and fashion. So he says that, he can't really talk about what she did before she got into beauty and fashion due to the case, but he completely understood what she was doing for a living beforehand. So Jen turned on Whitney because Whitney believed that what Jen did was fraudulent. So she turned on Whitney because I guess she was referring to the scene when she got arrested or when she got off the Splinter van when she had to leave. And Whitney was explaining the charges against Jen. And so at the reunion, Jen got mad at Whitney because it seemed like Whitney was believing these charges that were brought against her. And it's something to do with collecting data on people who are very vulnerable. So you get their information and then I guess you sell it to these companies that will sell these subscriptions to the elderly, and because they are vulnerable and probably not very tech savvy or don't have a good grasp on what's happening with their accounts, it's easy to convince them to buy these subscriptions, which is going to be, I guess, like automatically deducted from their bank accounts or their credit cards, and it's just like guaranteed money because these people are vulnerable. They are not able to really stay on top of their finances, and so you're just draining them dry. And so she was involved as far as selling the elderlies or the vulnerable people, these vulnerable customers, selling their information to the companies that would be charging them these subscriptions. So Heather intervenes and says, Whitney was not saying that you did these things, Jen. She was just explaining to us what legal lead generation was. So Whitney does apologize to Jen. She says, if I made it seem like I was thinking you were guilty of these things, I'm sorry. So she apologized. So then Jen questioned why people speculate on how her and her husband make their money. And she was like implicating that they people were speculating or people were doubting how they were generating income because of the fact that they were people of color. She says, is it because I'm a brown girl married to a black man? Is that why y'all were speculating on how I earned my money? And they were trying to tell, the ladies were trying to say, especially Whitney. Whitney was like, I wasn't questioning how you made your money. I was questioning how you were spending your money, because I've never had a friend that spent money the way you did. So Jen starts to shoot off all of Shaw's credentials. Like, I'm not married to some little league coach over here. Okay, he's an attorney. He was an NFL agent. He's a college coach in a Division I school. So I don't understand why it was hard for y'all to believe that, we were wealthy people. So Andy says, well, the viewers just didn't understand exactly what you did. So they assumed you were living off of his salary, because it never was. And it's never clear with any of these housewives, really, unless they have like a clearly defined profession or career, like they're an attorney or they're a doctor. You really don't know what these women are doing for a living, other than, apart from the money that they earn from the show. They're always starting businesses, pop-up shops. 1 year they'll have a boutique, the next year they have like a clothing line, then they're selling some kind of product. You never really know what these women are doing. So it was completely understandable that the people will question how Jen was making her living, because it wasn't really clear. She didn't have like a clear defined title. It was just, I have a business, or I have businesses, I'm selling this. Or I was like, what is it exactly that you're doing? Like, I remember I questioned Whitney when she rebranded her business. I was like, okay, what exactly are you selling? What is this? So after the news hit about Jen, Lisa was a no-show, but Heather did step up. So they talked about, Lisa's fair weatheredness, how she's not really like a true friend. She's not going to stick it out with you in the ditches or in the trenches when the going gets tough. But, Heather ended up stepping up, even though Heather and Jen have their disagreements in the past. So they asked Jen, I'm so glad they asked her this, because this is what I've been wondering ever since she got arrested. How do you stay so positive throughout all of this? Because when I'm watching the show, I'm just like, she's got some serious charges. It's the federal government coming after her. Who knows how long they've been surveying her, they've been watching her. You have no idea how far back they're going to go. Like, how in the world do you get out of bed and face each day knowing that you could possibly be going to prison? Because, like I said, I get stressed out over like a parking ticket or something like that. Completely stressed out. Throws me completely off. And here she is facing all of these charges, and she's just like showing up to these events and doing these dumb things with these housewives, having these stupid fights. Like, it's another day. So she says, well, Shaw stepped in and said, our only option is to stay positive. There's nothing else that we can possibly do. We have to stay positive, because to do anything else is going to completely derail us. And, he said that this has taken its toll on Jen, and there are so many days where she doesn't even get out of bed. And her younger son will come in to check on her. And then when he tries to encourage her, to get out of bed and start her day, that's when she'll finally get out of bed. But he was like, there's a lot of days that she doesn't get out of bed. It is a struggle for her, to go through this. And so I'm beginning to see really how it's taken its toll on her when she's not trying to, be put on her act for the cameras. So during the break, Lisa once again wants to have a kumbaya moment with somebody. I don't know what it is with this woman. It's like every time they go on break, she has to sit down. She has to get out of her spot and go sit next to someone else and try to make amends during the break. It's like, so during the break, she went to go sit by Heather and Whitney, and, she gave them hugs, and she was like, oh my God, I just want us to be back to the way we were, and we don't need to be going through this, and so on and so forth. And I guess when she struck out with Meredith, Meredith wasn't going to have a kumbaya moment with her. She decided to go over there across the street to Heather and Whitney and try to reconcile with them, because she's out in the cold alone, and she's one of those people that she needs allies. She can't face anything by herself. She needs like cohorts and co-conspirators, and she needs people to be like on her team. She just can't be there alone by herself. So, Jen Shaw, After we come back from the break, now we're going to go deeper into Jim Shaw. They talk about the indictment, they talk about the ring footage, which was really heartbreaking when they mentioned how the feds came to her home. They had her sons and her nephews at gunpoint. And with the climate that we're in right now, especially during that time when this was being filmed, it was crazy. And it was like every day you wake up to another article or another news report about a police shooting that ended in someone dying, some unarmed person of color dying at the hands of the police. And so I'm pretty sure it was probably, I can't even imagine what her children were going through, when these feds show up with guns and you feel like if you sneeze, you're going to go down in a hail of bullets. So yeah, that was really tragic to see that. And they asked her about, does she communicate with Stewart? She says, no, she doesn't communicate with Stewart. And she did say that it was really odd. It feels strange for her that, someone who was so close to her, I think for like 10 plus years, someone that she talked to every day, that she was like, she would see him several times a week. They were really, really tight, to all of a sudden to have that completely cut off. She says it's a really strange feeling. So Jen says that she and Stewart didn't work together in a business, especially with the stuff that they're being charged with. She said that they were not business partners in those business dealings that the feds are looking at. And so it was kind of confusing because yes, we did know that Stewart was her assistant, which is kind of odd because he seemed like someone who was, like he wasn't your typical assistant. He wasn't like some college kid, freshly graduated, trying to find a job kind of assistant thing. He seemed like a well-established man with his own career and his own stuff going on. So like, I didn't understand how he was exactly her assistant, but, I don't know if that was code for business partner, but they didn't want to say that on the show. I don't know what was going on. But to me, he never came across like an assistant. And then they do show us scenes where she says to him, you're making me money. So, and then, that's the scene where she was feeding him a banana and said, let me feed you while you're making me money, which to me, that doesn't sound like what an assistant does. That sounds like what your business partner will do. So, she says that we were not business partners in the things that the feds are charging us with. So I'm like, okay, so why were y'all charged together then? Why did they arrest both of you almost simultaneously if y'all had no business dealings with each other? So Jen says that he was not a business partner, not a business partner, but a friend that's been around her for 10 years, and she took care of him. That's what she said. He was just a good friend of mine, and I just, made sure that he was good. And I understand that she's saying this, to help build her case. So the look of confusion on my face, it's not like I don't know why she's saying this. It's just like I'm confused that she thinks this is believable, that anyone would believe that this was just her good friend or just her assistant that she was watching out for and making sure that he was good. Like she took care of him as in giving him money to make sure that he was okay, instead of like my business partner where we're splitting the profits of what we're doing. So if this is how you're going to build your case, Jen Shaw, in this manner of we're not business partners, he was just my friend that I was helping out, then you're going down. So then Stewart, they say that Stewart has since changed his plea and he has pled guilty. So he's not going to risk trial. He went ahead and he pled guilty, and Jen couldn't comment on that. And then, so she was trying to like talk about how they weren't business partners, and and I was like, Jen, you can only do so much in trying to deny like how closely you worked with Stewart, because a lot of this stuff is on the show, of you and him working together. Y'all just weren't hanging out, going to the bars, drinking, partying, going to Aspen. Y'all were doing business together, and that was on the show. So you can only deny it so much. So she can only deny so much about how close she worked with Stewart because the relationship was played out on TV. Jen asked why Lisa questioned how she earned her money, and then Lisa tries to put in other people. So she questioned Lisa, like, why did you doubt how I made my money, or got suspicious about how I made my money? And then Lisa once again does what Lisa normally does. She drags other people in with her, and she's like, I've never questioned that. I told you other people questioned that. And so Jen was like, well, who Who? Give me some names. Who? Of course she couldn't give any names, because if she dared to say anybody's name that was sitting on that couch, they would have ripped her apart as far as denying that. So she was just like, well, why don't you ask them? They're all sitting here. Just ask them, or whatever she said. But she said, yeah, that wasn't me. Those other people came to me and they were questioning me, and I just brought it to you. So, and she says, I myself, I've never questioned on how you made your money. I just commented, but oh, that's the part where Whitney said, Whitney had chimed in and said, I never questioned how you made your money. I just commented that I've never had a friend spend the way you spend. So then Andy says, your audition was centered around your spending and how much you spend. So yeah, so they showed us clips of the audition where she's talking about, how she's living it up, living large, name brand this, name brand that. And, Coach Shaw on his audition tape, he was talking about how, this woman's going to drain him dry with how much she spends. I think she said she spent like $50,000 a month. Her spending expenses were $50,000 a month. So, and it's like, okay, yes, I understand that your husband's a Division I coach, and he was a practicing attorney and an NFL agent, but those careers really don't show that you can spend $50,000 a month unless you're like the top echelon of NFL agents. I don't know how that works. So then Andy, okay, so they questioned Whitney on how she knew so much about legal lead generation, because that was like, it was weird how, well, it wasn't weird. It was just interesting when Jen got arrested that day, where they were in front of the beauty bar, or she didn't get arrested in front of the beauty bar. She got arrested, somewhere else. But that was the day that it all fell, it all came apart. All of a sudden, Whitney just automatically knew exactly what was going on, and she was breaking it all down. It was like, well, have you been involved in this? Like, how do you know about this so well, Whitney? And Whitney said that the reason why she knew so much about legal lead generation is because she talked to someone who used to work with, I think she said work with Jen. So then Andy says the accusation is that you're selling information on the vulnerable who were then roped into paying for things. And then Jen says she can't comment on that. So the question also about Whitney saying Jen had a sugar daddy, and Jen like really got upset about that, and Whitney was like, I didn't mean it, that it wasn't that serious. I was just basically joking around, because they were talking about how in one of the episodes they were talking about, Whitney was talking about for her to spend the way she does, not knowing exactly what she does for a living, and knowing that Coach Shaw is just a coach. Whitney speculated, well, she must have a sugar daddy. And it was just one of those flippant remarks that you make. And Jen took it to heart. It seems like Jen, because there was so much heat on her about what's going on with the federal charges, she really was trying to turn up the heat on other people. Like accusations of them possibly being racist, getting really upset about things that were said in jest, all that stuff. Like she really wanted to like show, well, I'm not the only bad one up here. These other women are racist and they're saying these horrible things about me. I'm also a victim, so on and so forth. So Jen said that for Whitney to speculate that she had a sugar daddy. Oh, Whitney has said it on Watch What Happens Live. That's when she had made that remark about Jen having a sugar daddy. Jen said that it was really disrespectful and racist. Heather tells Jen, you know what, you're really nitpicking. You're nitpicking these little things that don't really add up to anything. And Jen was like, and I felt like Jen was just probably, like I said before, deflecting. So the question to Lisa was, when Jen was arrested, you ghosted her. And Lisa says, no, I didn't. Once again, Lisa, what pills are you popping? Like, what are you talking about? That's exactly what you did. Number one, you called all your attorneys to figure out, if you could be implicated in any of the stuff that she was arrested for. Number two, the woman reached out to you several times wanting to have a conversation with you, and you kept on pushing her off, pushing her off, pushing her off. I don't understand. What is that? That's you being a really good friend? I mean, what is your definition of let's start there. Lisa, what is your definition of a friend? Maybe if we understand what your definition of of a friend is, then maybe we can understand why you act the way you act. It would make more sense to us. So Lisa called. They talk about how she called all these lawyers, and they asked her why did you do that? Why did you call 6 lawyers when you found out that Jen was arrested? And Lisa says that she had to call several different lawyers because one lawyer was not giving her enough information about what Jen was charged with. So that's why she had to call so many. And then the question was, why did you even call lawyers? No one else was doing that. Why were you calling all these lawyers? And Jen answered it, very succinctly. She said, because she felt guilty. That's why. She felt like she was going to be implicated somehow, or that maybe she's been doing things that may not be on the up and up. So she was feeling guilty about her own actions. So then they talk about why Meredith believes Jen was terrorizing her. And so Meredith and Whitney both had incidences where somebody was sending them, I guess, like threats, possibly, harming them or harming their family or something to that effect. And when they put their heads together, they realized that it had to be somebody within the group because very few people have their contact information. And that's limited to the women on the show and the crew. So they eliminated the crew because it wouldn't make any sense for anybody in the crew to come after them. So they had to look at the women on the show, and the one most likely is the one that they have the most beef with, which was Jen. So the message that was related to Heather, the message that was sent to Heather, whatever threat that was sent to her, it was, definitely show related, so it had to be someone from the show, according to Heather. And because there wasn't any concrete proof that it was Jen, Meredith ended up dropping that whole situation. But Meredith was triggered again when she saw something in the charges against Jen. She had seen something about, I don't know if she was being charged with encrypted messaging or whatever she was doing. She was using encrypted messaging in the indictments. So when she saw that in the indictments, it triggered Meredith, and that's why she brought it all up again about how she had to hire this private investigator or cyber specialist to investigate where these messages were coming from that were sent to her, because it seemed like the messages that were sent to her were encrypted somehow, some way. So when she read the indictment, Jen's indictment, encrypted messaging was mentioned in the indictment. So her cyber specialist told her that most likely it was probably Jen, but because they didn't have concrete proof, they didn't have that smoking gun, Meredith ended up just dropping the whole thing. So does anyone think Jen is guilty? Heather says, I don't care whether she is or she isn't, I'm here for her. Now, even though Heather is really trying to show her support for Jen, that answer to me, if I was Jen, it wasn't very, like, you weren't really believing in my innocence to say, well, whether she is or she isn't, I'm still here for her. She should have just said, I think she's innocent, or I believe she's innocent, or I believe she's not guilty, and so I'm going to stay by her side because I know she didn't do this, instead of, oh, she might be guilty, I don't know, but I'm here for her. So then Lisa said, well, she told me she's innocent, so I believe that she's innocent. And Meredith said, I don't know, but I hope she's innocent. And I'm thinking that's probably the most politically correct, most lawyer-like answer Attorney Meredith can possibly give. So Andy said the success rate of New York State attorneys is 95%. And Jen counter-argued and said, because most people take plea deals. So I'm going to fight this, and I'll fight for everyone else who didn't have the resources to fight. I am the voice for everyone who was taken down by the New York State Attorney General's office. And I'm like, okay, Rosa Parks, relax, calm down. It's, you're charged with of stealing data. Okay, you're not like a martyr for social injustice. Relax. So Jen doesn't know what the charge, because they asked her, like, how much time are you facing? And she says, I don't know. And they're like, you don't know how much time you're facing? She's like, no, I don't know. And they're like, well, did you ask your lawyers? She says, well, when me and my lawyers meet, we don't talk about that. Then what the hell do y'all talk about? I'd be talking about that every single time I met with my attorney. It's like, oh my God, I am facing 50 years. What are y'all going to do about this? Like, what are you talking about, Jen? I don't know if she's trying to be like, I can't talk about it, so I'm gonna play dumb kind of thing. I don't know why she answered it like that, but I didn't think that looked really that made her look any. I don't know why she did that. It was stupid to be like, I don't know what I was charged with, and I don't know how much time I'm facing. I'm just here. I don't know if she plays ignorant, then it's gonna seem like either she's really not worried about it, or it's gonna seem like she's not worried about it because she's innocent of all of this. So she's not even concerned about the charges or the time that she's facing because she's innocent of it all. So why should she worry her pretty little head about it? I don't know if that's the angle she was trying to come from or what. So she said she didn't know, but Andy said one charge was like 20 years, and the other charge was 30. So a total of 50 years that she's facing. Then Andy asked about the biggest takeaway of the season. Heather said something, and I liked what she said, but I don't remember what she said. I didn't write it down. We are done with the Real Housewives of Salt Lake City. Oh, one more thing. Andy Cohen asked Jen, are you going to be here for reunion number 3? And Jen Shaw said confidently, yes, Andy, I will be sitting right here next to you for reunion number 3. And let's cross our fingers and hope that she is, if she's really innocent of this. But if she's not innocent, and if it's proven in a court of law that she isn't, then justice needs to be served for the victims. Let's not forget about the victims. That is my review. Thank you so much for joining me. If you've made it this far, I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to rate the video, leave a comment if you like, and I will definitely, and subscribe, and I will definitely talk to you later.